Hello to anyone here who's in the playback. Please forgive me as I adjust. Made some changes in here. Turn this light down a little bit. Ooh. Okay. Better? Hey, Shelby. Looks like we're having a notifications issue, so I might give it a little bit of time. Also, it's going to sound a little different in here because I took down all my clothes that were hanging on the wall and rolled up the rugs, so it is echoey in here. Hey guys. Hi. Oh, I'm so excited to be back. It was only a week that I took a break, but my goodness, it feels like forever. You're going to get a lot of me this week, so let me tell Jake that it's going to be very echoey in here, so we're going to be able to hear everything that he sings. It's super echoey in here, and I'm public, so sing louder. That's what I'll say. This light is not doing me any favors. Let's see. I'll put these little filters on the bottom part, maybe. Apologize for all of the sounds. Ooh, she got a little bit warmer. Okay. Hey guys. Love wants chili cheese fries. Same. And this is not the first time in the past 3 days that I've had that conversation. How long did it take to get ready? Honestly, not as long as I thought, not as long as I expected. I wish I would have redone the pink and done like a more saturated pink, but it actually is a pretty saturated pink. I think the camera and the light, you guys know it's been acting weird, or the patrons know at least. It's been acting a little weird. Because if you look at my eye makeup on Instagram, girls, boys, and people. Jake sent me this in response to me sending him my Instagram picture. But see, like, can you see how saturated it is on my Instagram picture? What's up? Did I make the wings? No, they are very cool though. I got them on Amazon and they came in like surprisingly decent quality. Like the only thing they could have done to really make these more wow and more, I think, like Jules is if they were bigger. Like these on like a kid's costume would look amazing. I don't know if these will stay on entirely well because I didn't want to put my arms through the straps. So I put them through the straps of the dress. You like the fit, Rachel? Thank you. Oh yeah. So Cuckoo, Fendula. Yes, there will be spoilers all week. So apologies to anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to watch Euphoria. I would just come back and watch in the replay. Because there's not really like I could tell you to put me on mute, but you'll still see whatever's in the chat, right? So I tried to do the little clouds that Jules does sometimes. And Jules's color, I've watched a lot of videos analyzing Euphoria, but it seems as though there's a color that is kind of more predominant in each character's kind of like looks, aesthetic, scenes, etc. And Jules is more pink. A lot of pinks. Ooh. Oh, this dress, the zipper is not staying up. I got this dress a long time ago. So either it didn't fit then or you get older and you grow out of clothes. It looks so different, but still so good. Thank you. You like that they're tiny, Jane? Good. Yeah, if they were big, that'd be like really cool. But like, I don't know that I even want to keep these on while I sit and talk. they'll be nice to keep around for, like, future costume ideas. I love to keep pieces for, to piecemeal other costumes. But yeah, you think you will hope I'm doing well. Thank you, Day. I am. I'm dealing with the house buying process, so it's super stressful, but, no screen sharing. I don't have any clips. I don't have any clips. I've already, I don't want to get copyright striked, and I've already, like, it already took me hours upon hours upon hours. Um, Jane, if you gained weight, it was all boob. Thank you. I don't mind if that's the case. But yeah, the one thing that I noticed when I was doing my makeup, but especially when I was taking pictures of the look, I was like, this is not Jules. Why do I look like Maddie? I got a more Maddie look. And then I had to, like, calm down and be like, girl, you're Mexican. You're a brunette and you're Mexican. You just are going to look more like I look like, I think, if you did a cross between Maddie and Lexi. Maddie plus Lexi, more Lexi style. Maddie's earrings, then you get leash. I was trying to give this a little bit of time because notifications are slow. I don't want to give it too much time because I don't know how long it's going to take to go over these. I'm going to go shut that door completely. I left it cracked just in case one of the boys need to use the litter box, but they can hold it or they can want it at the door. So I also have a little heater going on in here because my shoulders are uncovered. Oh, I'm so sorry for anybody who is using earphones. Okay. Oh, Janie. Sorry, Jane. Janie. Sorry, Jane. Sorry, Jane. It's Janie. Sorry, Janie. It's Janie. Talk to Rachel. It takes me a few times to get the hang of it. You agree with that combo? Thank you, Hannah. I mean, yeah. Thank you. I mean, all the people in the show. The show is just cast with gorgeous people, so there's not really any bad combinations. You could say I look like Elliot, and I'd be like, okay, cool. Trying to tighten this microphone. I'm hoping I'm not loosening it, which I think I'm doing. Okay. All right. Thanks, Cuckoo, for stopping by. Oh, I feel bad for anybody who has to leave because they didn't. But I did try to give everybody enough time. I know some people were trying to hurry up and watch all the entire series before last week when I originally was planning on doing these streams. Thank God I gave everybody else as well as myself another week because I sure as hell needed it. So, in case you're curious about how this is going to be structured, let's see. Oh, I've got mods in here. I don't need to worry about modding. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze Euphoria seasons 1 and 2, but focus on the addiction aspect of it. So, we've heard a lot of people, I've seen a lot of breakdowns talking about the cinematography of it, talking about, certain aspects of being a high schooler, other shows that it's similar to or inspired by, or the media, I should say, symbolism and theories and predictions and all that. But I don't think there's enough out there in terms of perspective on addiction. So as an example, I was watching Kat Black. I don't, if any of you saw, she did one video where she watched the entire season 1 in one day, one night. And after each episode, she came back and did like a quick analysis, but it was really like 15 minutes each. So the video was pretty long. And she had some really, really like astute insights as to a lot of the characters and storylines, but especially I felt like she had a lot to say about Jules and Kat. I think those are the two characters that she kind of like, relates to the most, as most of us relate to different characters for various reasons. And, it's pretty obvious one of the reasons that Kat was able to speak to Jules's experience as being a trans woman. Um, and also just kind of like some of the behaviors of Jules and Kat as teenagers exploring, realms of sexuality and all that as teenagers. So she was able to give some like real life insight to that. One thing where I think Kat, I don't want to say she got it wrong because it's all opinion, and I love Kat, so don't you dare say anything bad about her. But one area where I felt like, and I did say in her comments, I kind of invited her to learn more about this, and other people in her comments did too, and she was gracious about receiving that feedback. But her kind of her perspective, or what her takeaway was, Rue is not a likable character. Don't like Rue very much. But like, what is this? Why is it that she can't get better? Or something like, why is it that Jules' love was not enough for her to get clean by the end of the season? And I think that makes perfect sense for what most of our society knows about addiction. But especially that's so what media feeds us, right? Media feeds us, a broken character who falls in love, especially if falls in love with somebody who's near perfect, angelic, you might say. Um, and then they get better for good, or like they go off to rehab, and then I'm thinking Royal Tenenbaums, Owen Wilson, like they go off to rehab and they come back and they're totally fixed, and that their life doesn't change except for that they're not drinking or doing drugs anymore. And so I think that is one area that Euphoria gets a lot right, obviously, because Rue's story, or if you may not know, it may not be obviously, but obviously if you know that Rue's story is semi autobiographical to the creator Sam Levinson's life, as he is an addict in recovery. I believe he was active between the ages of like 14 and 19. So, there are other aspects of it there. And of course, Euphoria has gotten a lot of flack for being like, essentially a TV show where you just watch a bunch of teenagers like naked. And I agree that, like, especially as you get older, it gets a little cringy. You see where it's gratuitous and unnecessary. But then I heard somebody say, well, it's kind of the branding, it's kind of the hook to get people to watch, but you stay for the story and the lessons you learn through not just Rue's story. There's a lot of story about how everybody has their traumas, and we'll go through that. But especially, I think Sam gets it right in telling the story of addiction through Rue. So let me turn this little heater off now that I've warmed up a bit. Okay. So yeah, so all the love in the world to Kat Black, but I hope that I did leave a comment inviting her of like, I am doing a stream where I talk about these things, if that might help. But I hope that it will do that for other people who had it, because I imagine a lot of people had a similar takeaway to that, right? So what I'm going to do is, so how this is structured is we're going to do season 1 between today and tomorrow, and season 2 between Wednesday and Thursday. And then for patrons, we'll do our live on Friday, and we'll go over the 2 special episodes. If you didn't know, there was a special, they did it as kind of a holdover to kind of hold over their audience during COVID. They created 2 essentially vignettes, one on Rue, where she is just having a conversation with Ali in the pancake house. And then there is another special where Jules is essentially in a therapy session. So you really get to home in on what they're dealing with in that very moment. And especially Jules' special was so, like, I feel like I wish it were part of the actual show because it was so important, in my opinion. As far as Rue's special, I thought it was really fantastic in terms of just a sponsor and sponsee type of conversation. But yeah, so what I have is essentially notes of like everything that happened scene by scene. So I'll just like run through, we can talk a little bit about other aspects of the show that don't necessarily deal directly with addiction, but I'd like to focus more on the addiction parts. And then if we have time towards the end, of course, we can like play with other thoughts on characters or stories and all of that. So I wrote a note here, but I don't remember exactly where I meant to put it. But I did say, and this kind of does, I guess, pin on to Kat's assessment. I said that it is difficult to hear Rue's. Okay. Actually, this is for the people who love Rue and are always rooting for her and don't want anything bad to happen or want any consequences or anything like that for her. And I was saying that something to keep in mind is that it is difficult sometimes to see and hear Rue's faults because she is such a sympathetic character. Sometimes kind of a sympathetic anti-hero. She's obviously a protagonist in active addiction, but she mentions something about this later, and so we'll just put a pin in that because she kind of comments on her own likability, I guess, as the protagonist. So let's go through each episode. I have about a page and a half of just line by line, like what happens. So in season 1, episode 1, that's the pilot. We have a lot of exposition up front. So we're introducing a lot of characters. And then we go a little bit into Rue's backstory. And so she mentions that she was, let me take a time out and make sure the chat's doing okay. We've got 40 people here. Notifications aren't great. We'll probably have people pile in a little bit later. So, but we're already, 20 minutes into this. So I definitely want to get moving. Notes on notes on notes. I was a good student. We know this. I'm going to move my water to the other side of my desk. So let's keep bumping this microphone. And hashtag Watergate. Okay. So where were we? So Rue was born 3 days after 9/11. She said middle-class childhood in an American suburb. She mentions that she was diagnosed as a child with OCD, ADD. That's not the sick. That's not what I said. It's AD. She said ADD, not ADHD. So have that argument with somebody else. General anxiety and possible bipolar disorder. And then we see present day Rue stealing medication from her mom's medicine cabinet. I do think that it's important to kind of go back because she mentions being born 3 days after 9/11, and that's not nothing. Because if we imagine the state of the country at that time and just and it's tough because some of my audience is a little too young to remember exactly where they were, but if you're anywhere around my age or older, you remember exactly where you were. A lot of people I talk to know exactly what class you were in when you found out, whose classroom you were in when they turned on the TVs and you were watching all that. And it was just, the country was in mass panic and heartbreak. So that's what she was born into. What I do find oftentimes, and I do kind of point it out here and there, is that I notice where I find Rue sounds almost as if she's justifying her addiction. So Stephanie said, I look so pretty. Thank you. You look so pretty. We're vibing. Do I take aesthetic notes or scribble notes? It depends. I try so hard. I would show you like some of my prettier ones, but let me see. There were some days where I would like start over and like try to take them nice and neat. So they'd be like, that's the neatest I can do, I think. But then like when it's like a really like jam-packed episode, like it starts to look like, I start to look like a serial killer. Let me see if I can find, oh, that's not too bad. But I start to like scribble. Somewhere in between. I have this like weird, like, I thought that I have like no discernible type of handwriting. And then I realized it's just kind of like a spectrum of like, this is what it looks like when it's neat. This is what it looks like when it's scribbly. And it's always somewhere on that spectrum. But yeah, I want, oh yeah, like this is like super scribbly. Church scene. The church scene was so good. You were in kindergarten, Shelby. Ninth grade English class, Rachel. I was in 11th grade. 2011. Yeah, I was in 11th grade. I was walking into trig. Elise is listening. May not be in the chat too much. No worries. Thanks for letting us know. We were not just scary. We were scared. We were scared, and it really did. It affected everything. It affected how people treated each other. I had a friend who moved over from Jordan. Don't know why his family moved from Jordan to South Georgia. Oh, really, really nasty scribbles. But he moved over, I think, like that year, and was just in the process of making friends and learning English in school. And oh God, it's so bad. You're talking about South Georgia. You're talking about, probably like in America, one of the places where racism runs the most rampant, which was difficult. Oh, 9/11 was very difficult for my family. I know to a lot of people I look just like a white girl, but that's when my siblings would come home crying because they were dealing with more racism than they did before. My friend who had moved from Jordan after 9/11, people were fighting him all the time. So then it got him into a very defensive state all the time. And when I talked to him later, after I guess like even after I graduated college, I reconnected with him and found out that he had spent time in prison for assault. And you have to stop and think, like, this was a nice kid. Like, he never really started fighting until after 9/11. So is that even, what could have caused that? So, where was I? So yeah, so we open up on present day Rue. Rue, she's living with Gia and her mom. Gia's her little sister, and I believe we were in present day, meaning that she's back from rehab. She had spent the summer in rehab, or a part of the summer in rehab, and had no intention of staying clean. So as soon as she gets home, it shows this kind of like this montage of like several clips that show that this is like a regular thing that she does, stealing from her mom's medicine cabinet. She says in her exposition, or her narration, I should say, I didn't build the system, nor did I F it up. And I think that this is a little bit, we're going to see this more and more, like I said, as she justifies her addiction. There's no real way of doing that without kind of assuming a bit of a victim mentality while you're justifying your active addiction. It's one thing if you are in recovery or even in active addiction, but it's a little tougher to discern, to talk about what the contributing factors are that you think. And that's what we do in AA, and just addicts do in life in general, is we sit around and sometimes here's what I'll tell you, it's like in my experience, and those are my friends that I've talked to about this. We sit around and you analyze and you think and you think and you pick your life apart to try and figure out what made you an addict. And then you have all these theories and hypotheses until you get to the point where you say, like, okay, I'm an addict because I'm an addict. I just am. I can't figure this out anymore. So when you hear an addict say, well, like, these are the traumas I lived through and endured and carried with me, and these are the contributing factors to what led me down this path. That's different from an addict who is like, well, I didn't build the system, nor did I F it up. So it's not my fault that I'm like this, that I do this. I was born right after 9/11. I've got all these diagnoses. And I want one thing that I want to talk about more on my channel, and it's so difficult. So please, like, have grace for other people and yourself, because I'm about to refer to a balance. And when you're talking about a balance, there's no one right answer for how much of this versus how much of the other. But I want to mention throughout these analyses that when we're looking at Rue, particularly through the lens of addiction, we need to find a way to balance empathy with accountability. So it is good to learn what it's like for these people so that you have compassion and understand, try to have understanding for something you may not have any real understanding of. It's so important. I think, of course, this is kind of like my fight. I care about this more than most people, but it is one thing that, I've had to bury people that I love so much because of this addiction. I am 10 years in this year, God willing, and it's not easy. And it's just one of those things I feel like we would be more successful at attaining recovery across the board if we talked about these things more. And I understand for a lot of people it's really difficult because it's like, oh, am I allowed to be judgmental of the addict? And I tell you, yes. Or the other question is, or should I be compassionate because they're dealing with the disease and they can't necessarily control that? And to that, I answer yes. And so if both answers are yes, that means that you're having to balance this thing. It's really difficult. So bear in mind throughout all of this, I am pissed off at Rue for the ways that she messes up and is destructive and especially hurting other people, particularly her mom and Gia. And I'm also, my heart breaks for her and is understanding of her plight. So it's both. It's both at the same time. So, oh, am I frozen? Share thoughts on Al-Anon. I'd have to learn more about Al-Anon. I'd be interested, but I've never attended. I know I could talk to my mom about it. My mom's attended Al-Anon. As far as I understand, though, Al-Anon is its own 12-step program, and 12-step in general, they're all pretty similar. 12-step is I've talked about this a lot. If you want good media that is a solid representation of how AA or 12-step goes, check out the movie called Thanks for Sharing. Mark Ruffalo, Tim Robbins, Josh Gad, Pink, Gwyneth Paltrow. It's fantastic. I love it. I love that movie. It really focuses on SLAA, which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. But most of the people that are in these programs have cross addiction. So they're in SLAA, but also AA or also NA. And more or less, they're all structured towards the same. They follow the same steps. The language is very similar. The structures is very similar. So, yes, who doesn't love Mark Ruffalo? Nobody doesn't. No, I play a game with myself called Nobody Doesn't Like. Mark Ruffalo is one of them. Hey, Janina. I read that. I didn't read that as YouTube and Discord are being little bees. I read you and Discord are being little bees. It's like, I try to notify you. I know it's being slow. I'm going to try to censor myself, by the way, because I'm trying not to get demonetized, but I'm talking about Euphoria. So, like, I wonder if I've already been demonetized. Curious. Is YouTube going to support us having this conversation? I'm very curious. Already limited. So let me go ahead and request review while we're at it. See, they don't like people talking about Euphoria and sobriety. Hadn't even really said anything. Stop talking about my dress. Is it because Janie made a comment about where I gained weight? No, I'm kidding. So yeah, that is something that's a balance I want you to keep in mind. How am I going to talk about Euphoria without saying D? I wonder if it's y'all's chats that are flagging the system. No, I'm kidding. I probably don't need to talk about it too much because I'm not that interested. There's a lot of D, but not really all that relevant to my analysis here about Euphoria's depiction of addiction and recovery. And the other thing too is that we briefly mentioned this a couple BAPs ago, where some of the criticism of Euphoria is that it romanticizes or glamorizes certain things like the use of substances. And to that I say no. No, it doesn't. And one thing that I believe Sam Levinson pointed out in an interview is that you notice that every time the kids in the show use substances, something bad happens. So the show is glamorous in a way. I mean, it's called Euphoria. It's very glittery. It's beautiful. But the storylines around the use of substances do not work out in anybody's favor. So, doo, doo, doo. You got the wheel of doom for a sec. Oh no. Um, so where were we? So yeah, so then we cut to Gia is picking up Rue from rehab. You see that they have a really great relationship. They're so excited to see each other. Mom is wishing the best for her. And then you hear her kind of again her narration saying, I had no intention of staying clean, and Jules had just moved to town. And then I had a little heart. And by the way, I put hearts next to the characters that I really love the most. I hadn't put hearts next to Gia and Leslie yet, but I do later. But I put heart, meet Fezco. If you don't know Fez is my favorite character. I put favorite character for his kindness and care for others. He is a drug dealer who wants to see with my handwriting, Rue looks just like the word me. So I'm like, he just wants to see me clean. No, wait, he wants to see Rue clean and take care of his family. That's really what he cares about. He cares about other people. And something interesting too is that I watched a couple of interviews with Angus Cloud, a Rolling Stone interview, and I don't remember what the other one was, but the interviewer asked him where his character's name came from. And he didn't know. Angus Cloud didn't know. Nobody in that interview knew where the name came from. So I have this cool little tool called Google that was able to tell me that the name Fezco is actually, if this is correct, so this is purportedly based on what Google told me upon an initial search, that it is Berber. That it is Berber for the word brother. Some say it means maneuver. I think brother is probably more likely what Sam Levinson would have meant for this character, because you see that he is a brother. It's tough to say because I want to say he is Ashtray's brother. Some people would say this is surrogate brother or like an adoptive brother, and if those things are true, they aren't blood. They aren't blood brothers, so is a whole thing. They aren't biological brothers, but we'll get later as we get into their stories that they do take in Ashtray and they're raised as brothers, and so that is my life. I was adopted at a year old when I was a baby, like Ashtray, by my dad. And then the children that he and my mom had, I don't call them my half siblings. I don't call my dad my stepdad. That's my dad, and those are my sister and my brothers. So I do think that Fezco is not only a brother to Ashley, but he's a brother character to our main protagonist. He says several times throughout the series that Rue is his family. She's like a little sister to me. She's like a little sister to me. I also thought it was really interesting that they gave him a name that's Berber as well, because I don't know much about this. I could do a quick Google search right now, but my friend was at one point dating this guy, and he was Berber, and I was like, I'd never heard of that. What is that? And she was like, well, as far as I understand, it's like he comes from this like tribe in Africa, and like everybody in his tribe or in his community, they're white people that not only white, but like with red hair, like gingers. So I find that interesting because Fezco does have kind of like reddish hair, freckles, and has a Berber name. So there you go. It's really interesting. My head's starting to hurt, guys. I'm so sorry. I decided to put on some perfume because I was like, what am I feeling with this look? Product, candy? So I put that on, and then I don't know if it's too strong or the lights or what, but family isn't always blood. And in this case, yeah, Fezco doesn't have any biological brother that we know of. So yeah, so I absolutely love him, and I don't know at this point if much could change that. I love him more and more. So In terms of Fezco and Ashtray, so it says here, we judge them a certain way until we learn more about them later. And I think that that's a really important commentary on how people are treated in general. And you see kind of interesting case studies of that through these characters. So, as an example, like I have here, meet Nate and McKay, meet Jules, meet Kat. So, I think Nate and Fezco are perfect polar opposites of each other in terms of their character and their kind of their social standing. So Nate is this kind of like perfect, straight conservative, white, wealthy, probably a good student, as you know, he's kind of held to high standards, jock, all that stuff. So in terms of social standing, he's able to get out of any sort of convictions that might come his way. He just gets out of everything scot clean. So he looks like a model citizen. And so just upon first meeting him compared to the town drug dealer, they don't look. It's easy for people to look at Nate with a certain positive light and Fezco with a certain negative light. But then when you get to know these characters and any characters in general, you get to know their characters and you get to see that at least over the course of 2 seasons, we have seen nothing but like tar out of Nate's heart and nothing but softness and care and kindness out of Fezco's. So that's something I like to keep in mind as I'm watching him. So where were we? Yeah, meet Nate and McKay. I think Nate and McKay also are really interesting to compare to each other because they have very similar. I might have mentioned this later in the notes, but they are also raised in similar ways in terms of having fathers that are very strict and hold them to really high standards. But you also see very different character traits out of them. Nate is very cold and selfish and cruel, and McKay is soft and sensitive and kind. So, but I also think too that some of and I'm probably jumping ahead here because I forget what I wrote down, but some of the teachings, some of the standards that the fathers are placing on the sons, I wonder if some of that is coming from McKay's dad to him, as I think I did talk about this later, but more out of concern about his son being a black man in society or growing up to be a black man, because I've heard similar similar teachings from my dad to my brothers. So let's see. So I said we meet Jules, we meet Kat, we meet Maddie, and then Leslie and Rue argue in front of Gia. Rue does the whole, drug testing thing, which if you've known a drug addict, you've probably heard that a million times. You think I'm using drug test me, and then they try to find any and every way to get out of it. And I will use sweeping generalizations sometimes just based on what I've seen are super, super common trends in active addiction. It doesn't mean every single time 100%. Use your common sense. So so when Leslie and Rue agree to do the drug test, we meet Lexi, who is or was Rue's best friend at some point. We meet Susie, or sorry, I keep calling her Susie, but I believe she goes by Suze and Cassie. And then there's a flashback of Gia finding Rue OD'd in her bedroom. And I'm not the only one, but I just feel for Gia. Like, can she get a break? I would love for season 3 to give her a break, but I actually think it's probably going to go somewhere dark for Gia. But the quote says, "I know a lot of you hate me right now, and I get it." Because we don't know her, right? As we get to know her, that's going to change. Nate sucks. Let's see. Lilac, curious about your thoughts on the youngest brother in the Jacobs family portrait. We actually talked about that on Patreon last week. So not sure who I think that is. But we kind of ran through the possibilities that were proof that we have at our disposal. If you're a patron, you can check that out. I want to give Gia a hug, Shelby. Me too. I think everybody does. So Nate, McKay, Cassie, um, nudes slash videos. Everyone else is experiencing. Okay, so yeah, so this is where Nate and McKay are kind of like going back and forth. McKay thinks he likes Cassie. Nate's talking about how she's a this, she's a that, because she's had her own photos and videos kind of just out dispersed everywhere. She's kind of known as that quote unquote that girl at school. And I made a note here that everyone else is experiencing trauma, humiliation, exploitation, etc. Some of them take on more of a victim mentality, others not so much, but you see how they all express their experiences with these issues in different ways. So we also, let's see, I put a heart, heart McKay, heart Lexi, by the way. Meet Cal. Cal is on a date with Jules before the party that Jules is to go to. So they're meeting up in a motel room. Jules tells Cal that she's 22 and they hook up. So let's see. With Cal, he says he's jealous of your generation. You don't care about the rules. And I think this is interesting because Cat Black actually commented on this about how like she's met that like older men that kind of talk down kind of condescendingly because you're younger. Like you're younger, you wouldn't understand. But it's also, I see it as an intense form of jealousy because clearly Cal is closeted in some way. I guess we don't necessarily know that right now. I mean, you know that something's up because he's just some man in a motel instead of being like, why aren't you at your home or at your date's home? But of course we find out that he's he's got a family at home that he's cheating on. So jealous of your generation. You don't care about the rules. Well, the rules are not the same, Cal, as they were when you were their age. So maybe it's a bit boomer. Nate and Maddie, Maddie is revenge flirting in the pool with a guy we would come to know as Tyler. And Kat is on a mission to lose her V card. We get Rue gets a lecture from Fezco. So he tells a story. Tells a story about allergic reaction at 11. Rue does. Rue tells a story about having an allergic reaction to something I think that they ate when she was 11 years old. She was given liquid Valium, and she said suddenly the world went quiet, and I felt safe in my own head. 2 years later, her dad passed away. She said, I found a way to live. Will you still be my dealer, Fez? And I feel like this is pretty manipulative, honestly. Again, you get more. Savannah loves to party. Do you hear it? You get more explanation as to why perhaps Rue got into what she got into. But at the end of the day, like she's using this like sob story, like this is how I got into it. I lost my dad. Will you still deal to me? And when he doesn't want to. Nate sees Tyler and Maddie in the pool. He goes into a rage. He terrorizes Jules, which I'm a little curious about. Jules kind of takes a knife and like runs it across her arm as a way to be like, you don't scare me. There's another thing that Kat commented on, just saying that, sometimes we can see characters like Jules and think like, oh, she's so dainty and she's like meek and kind of sensitive and soft and timid, but you don't realize that like what she's had to deal with has really toughened her up. She's really had to be on guard and know how to protect herself in situations. And in this situation, it was by proving that she could be crazier than Nate. So, but the other thing that I found interesting, and I read like an epiphany I had, or just a realization I had, that I guess I'll pose to you guys because I posed it to Amber and she didn't really quite know the answer either. Do we know the answer? I don't know. But I think when people talk about this scene, even when Jacob Elordi was talking about it after the episode, when they kind of interview each cast member, they talk about how, he talks about how he approaches Jules because she is a threat to his family and everything that they value. So he calls it order and straightness and just, you know, you kind of assume that he knows because he does at some point find out about Cal, his dad, and Jules. We don't know any of this yet. You guys know this because I'm assuming that you've watched the show. Maybe some people haven't, but we know that Cal records his encounters with people and then also saves them on CDs that then Nate has been watching since he was about 11 years old. So we kind of assume that that's the reason he's kind of like in Jules's face, threatening her, terrorizing her. But then you realize she just met Cal right before this party. So think about that, because Amber and I started to throw around some ideas in terms of what that could possibly mean, because he couldn't have seen, unless this is just a plot hole that the writers didn't realize it was there, but he could not have seen, Jules and his dad in bed together yet by that point. But perhaps one of the theories that I had on why this may be is, and kind of like how he came upon Jules on his own, is that he may be on, we assume, Grindr or a similar app to scope out who he thinks his dad's going to be hooking up with next. So I wonder if that's the case here. Let's see. Rue meets Jules and goes home with her, and then we hear the same music. I think when I say same music, I might mean the music that was playing when we saw Jules on her bike the first time. Oh no, sorry. The same musics and cinematics as when Rue is taking substances. I think that's a really important thing to notice, because then that means that is our first introduction to the concept that Jules equals or yields intoxication for Rue. And then ends with Rue saying, "I've got an idea. Do you want to get high?" So that's episode 1. And I need to pee. So if you guys don't mind, I'd love to hear your ideas in terms of what's the deal with Nate and Jules. What exactly is it that he saw that's causing him to approach her this way? Because it could not have been her in bed with Cal just yet. So I'm going to just give me 30 seconds or so. I'm sad because I just caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and saw how much more saturated my eye makeup is in real life than it is on camera right now. Janie asked, did she just say a guy is showing an 11-year-old his illegal recordings? No, he had them hidden. He's been doing it for years and saving them. And Nate, when he was 11 years old, found a collection of these discs. You think Jules was the only one who didn't look away while he was raging. I think there's a lot more to do. I realized this the second watch around. There's a lot more there to Nate's attraction to Jules. There's a lot there. Um, there might be some. I heard that there was some sort of like that perhaps Hunter Schafer and Jacob Elordi don't really get along because apparently, allegedly, Jacob Elordi and Zendaya dated briefly, and it didn't go well. So, as you know, BFFs, Hunter Schafer is not a fan of Jacob Elordi, allegedly, and I wonder if that's preventing them from having more scenes together. But for sure, he's got something for Jules. The question is, when did it start, and does that have anything to do with this? Is it just that he has seen her around and is attracted to her, and she says to Rue at some point, like, I don't have the privilege of meeting people in public. People know that I'm trans. So it might just be simply he is attracted to her and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like that he's attracted to somebody that he and other people knows is trans. Let's see. This kids is why we don't go through our parents' things. I would say it's his embedded homophobia, but he would have to know Jules was trans, and you would never know that by looking at her. You say that, yes. I mean, she's super passing, but she does say, it is easier for some people to tell than others. Some people are able to see that and tell sooner than others. But she does say, essentially, people here know. Even though she's new to town, people know. And especially since we know she was on the app, the Grinder-like app, if Nate found her there, then he really knew who she was right away. Shelby says maybe Nate has been following in his dad's footsteps for longer than we know, and he and his father have similar tastes. Yeah, but we'll see that that's a theme throughout, that they do have very similar, we assume, or we kind of have hints at, like, closeted desires. The way that, the way that Cat Black put it is, and I'm going to try to find my censored way of putting this, is that there are some straight men who just have a very intense attraction to the D. So, and even though we see Cal hooking up with men and women, with Nate, so far, we really only see him attracted to women, to include trans women, woman being, or girl really being Jules. But then we do see that he's got a lot of discomfort around D, with all the D that's shown in the show. And Lilac, he's absolutely attracted to Jules. That's so apparent in so many different ways throughout both seasons. So it's a question of when did that attraction start? When did he learn who she was? When did all of this really start? That would have caused that scene to happen at the party. Ooh, we've already been at this for an hour, so I'm gonna have to pick it up so we can get through these next 3 episodes. So episode 2, Stuntin' Like My Daddy, is the name of the episode. So here we have a cold open on Nate's backstory. And if I'm not mistaken, I have this quote that says, "I see myself in you." I think that is Cal speaking to Nate. And he says, "They'll see what I see in you, and they'll despise you for it. Don't give them an opening." And that's a hint at Cal's struggles with his his own kind of closeted homosexuality, or just different sexual proclivities that are not fitting the heteronormative script. And so he's got to repress a lot of that, and he's kind of hinting at Nate, like, I see in you what I deal with, and don't let them get to you, because it's scary. It's scary for Cal. I do have some sympathy for him, not a ton, but some. We also get Nate and Maddie's backstory a little bit. We also see that Jules made Rue says that Jules finally made her feel good about the world. And then I'm curious too, because then we see, going back to the last line of the first episode, where Rue asks Jules if, you want to take something together. And then you see them kind of like underneath the covers, and then they're like, I'm so happy, and like everything's all like warped and stuff. I'm curious as to whether or not that experience was real. I believe it probably was, but someone in one of the videos I was watching made a good point about Rue being an unreliable narrator. And it's really just interesting because in some ways she's omniscient. She knows everything about everyone, things that she shouldn't know. So you're like, how do you know this? Like, how do you know this about these people's backstories? But then also she herself is an addict. And so, and she's like, most of the show, she's on something. And so we don't, and even if that something is just being high off of Jules. So her stories, and we'll find out later, like what we think is real actually turns out not to be real. It happens to be something that they talked about, something she thought about, something that she was just mistaken about. So it makes me wonder, like, did this scene even happen? Or was she just remembering being very intoxicated off of just Jules's presence? And then we see a flashback to the OD scene again, and we see Gia. I said, why are the cool mean girls? Oh, one of the questions I have is, why are the cool mean girls BFF with Kat? Needs backstory. Were they friends as kids? Did Kat have a cooler older sibling? Is it because she worships Maddie? Otherwise, she's unpopular offline, and it doesn't make sense. Like, I need that to make a little more sense. They mentioned her being popular for a little bit in elementary school when she had the boyfriend, but otherwise she's popular online for her fan fiction, but otherwise she's really unpopular offline, which makes no sense. Then why are you best friends with Maddie? That doesn't make sense. Because Kat is the best. I don't like Kat. I really don't like her as the episodes go on. But if that's the case, then why isn't Fezco popular? He's the best. Rue's embarrassed, trying to remember a summer memory not related to her, her OD and rehab. I said song between detox and rehab. Song? I don't know if there's a certain song. Yeah, but she's on stage and they're doing some exercise where everybody's taking 5 minutes for, I guess, a public speaking exercise or something like that, and the teacher's telling her to just talk about a memory from the summer, and she doesn't have a positive memory. And in fact, a lot of people at school, when they do return for the school year, say like, "Oh, I thought you died. I thought you died," and so it was really difficult for her. She couldn't think of anything. She stammered. She cried. And then we have another flashback. Rue, Gia, and Mom in the hospital room. Rue being a bad friend to Lexi. When she's jonesing, she's nice. She's nice when she needs something, like for Lexi to pee in a bottle. But then we'll see that she's pretty mean other times. Then we meet Ali, Heart Ali. Well, I want to see what you guys say. H. Woods, I would die for Fezco. I'm going to marry him. He looks like Mac Miller. Yes, yes, yes. Stephanie, you also thought that didn't make sense. I'm glad somebody else picked up on that and was like, wait, why? Explain this. I like after Kat's transformation, like makes sense because of like she has all the confidence in the world. But like beforehand, I'm like, why? Why? Maybe they should give Maddie and Kat's friendship a little bit more backstory. Let's see. So meet Ali. So I mentioned here that media AA meetings, the speaker is very poetic, and I don't think that's anything that we can necessarily change. Um, just because it's media, it's meant to be poetic and entertaining. And so like he's giving his share, and it sounds very poetic, not as much so as I see in other media, but like I said, thanks for sharing doesn't do that so much. Flashback, taking care of dad and stealing his pills. I'm not sure if this was the scene, but when I went back and watched a second time around, I noticed that was when they took dad away after he passed, is when Rue picked the hoodie up off the bed and put it on. So if you didn't notice that, now you know that not only is my wing drooping, but that hoodie that she's always wearing is actually kind of like a comfort blanket. It was her dad's. Then back to the meeting. She manipulates the treasurer or the meeting leader, the secretary, to break the rules by signing this slip. Guilted and manipulated him into backdating her slip. Then Kat is in a crisis because she finds video of her hooking up with the boy at the party. Is kind of circulating around the school and then later online. Kat kind of gaslights and manipulates the principal into not only believing that it's not her in the video, but feeling bad for ever thinking it would have been her. It says, and then we get to Rue invites Jules over. Mom's been asking about you, and then Rue is embarrassed when Jules says, "You've been telling your mom about me," and she's embarrassed. And I think that's just kind of highlighting her infatuation with Jules. We see Suze and McKay talk. Again, heart Suze. I love her. Spoiler. And this, I think I wrote this because of how much I love Suze. She really steps up as a mother. And I think like if you don't like her yet, I think she will, or she could grow on you. I'm reading what you guys are saying in the chat. Confident Cat. Although she turns mean, like I live for her confidence and her transformation, like her style and everything. I'm curious, H. Woods, what you mean in terms of how dirty Sam did Kat. Now we did talk a little bit about on Patreon with theories and predictions, but what I've heard allegedly is that they were going to write in an AD for Kat's storyline, and that she didn't want that, and that caused some friction. And one theory that I heard was that it may be that he cut the scenes that involved that storyline. So it may not necessarily be that they were doing each other dirty or that they were fighting, but maybe perhaps they came to this agreement and then that meant that those scenes had to be cut. We'll have to see in season 3 where she goes. Unless you mean like the way that she turned into just an awful person. In which case, yeah, they wrote her pretty terrible. Let's see. So, yes, Suze and McKay are talking. She's being very sweet, telling McKay how smitten Cassie is with him, and Cassie's kind of a jerk to Mom. Nate is texting Jules as Tyler. So this is, happening. This might have been going on for a while, but we didn't have, I don't even know if it's happened yet, but he hasn't given the name Tyler. That's another reason that I've wondered. Like when I was like, okay, he knows who Jules is. Maybe he's already talking to her on, whatever app this is, but he doesn't say that he doesn't give the name Tyler. Tyler, again, is the name of the guy that was in the pool with Maddie. But it's possible. It's possible that they were talking and then he later gave himself the name Tyler. Fez tries to turn away Rue. We see him taking care of Grandma. This is kind of our introduction to, quote unquote, the hard life of the drug dealer. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So he tries to turn Rue away, and this is the scene where she won't leave. She won't give up this quest to leave there with something, and he's trying to get her to leave because he's got his suppliers coming, and they're very scary dudes, and she refuses. So she ends up sitting there, and he tells her just to be quiet, and it's a really, really scary scene because these guys show up, and then Fez says like this, she's like my little sister or whatever, and the supplier has this very manipulative way of pressuring people to take things, pressuring Fez to take substances that he doesn't necessarily want to sell, pressuring Rue to take something that she doesn't want to take. And he does it, and he's like, while he's doing it, knowing that she's a minor, like kind of like touching her and fondling her and stuff like that. It's very uncomfortable. And if you did by any chance watch my videos I did 2 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, my experiences with my ex, quote unquote, RJ, I've been in a situation that was kind of similar to this, where I ended up face to face with his dealers, and they were, first like being mean to me, and then, like then trying to like hold my hands and hug me and touch me and just making me feel entirely unsafe and really disgusting. And just, I didn't feel like there was any way out of it. It reminds me of that. It's a really scary situation. And yelling at anybody who tried to help. So it's kind of similar, Fez, there wasn't really anything Fez could do except for bail her out by paying for the substances that he gave her and put on her and refused to take back with a quote unquote no return policy. So this is the first time that Rue is exposed to fentanyl personally. So Fez saves Rue, flushes the rest of those down the toilet after paying for them. Calls preemptively for Narcan. I guess he tells Ash to grab the Narcan in case that they might need that. So and then calls Jules for help. So we see here that Fez, although he is caught up in this lifestyle, he does have a strong moral compass and a set of ethics with which he conducts himself. Oh, Janie, thank you. Barbie spoke and said it was lies. What, the ED thing? If you know, tell us what you know. So episode 3 is called Made You Look. We get Kat's backstory. If you get a moment, if you could like the stream, we're demonetized. So already. So whatever we can do helps. If you would not mind, thank you. I also have a hard time remembering to ask people to do that. Thank you for joining me too. Here we're going into the next 2 episodes that we're going to tackle in this stream. So episode 3 of season 1 is called Made You Look. And we get a cold open on Kat's backstory. We meet her first boyfriend. We hear about how she gained a lot of weight as a young child. Kind of a cute scene where she's on the beach with her family and ordering all these virgin pina coladas or something like that. Then she gets into writing fan fiction and gains an online following. as we mentioned before. So she's very popular online, but offline is not at all. And then we start to see her transformation into kind of this cam girl. Um, which, yeah, it's a very complicated thing. You love parts of it. You don't know how healthy it is for her. It's just, eek. Let me see. Um, all right. Sorry, I was reading the chats, and sometimes I totally forget that I'm like, you're totally silent, dead air for like 5 straight seconds, Alicia. Get it together. You're not invited to the chat. Now I just need to read aloud what I'm reading. Okay, so Rue is back at AA, and has a flashback where she's fighting with her mom. Gia is almost always just like there and witnessing this, and like it's so critical to know that, because I do think that we're going to see Gia's story flesh out. I do think that we're going to see problems for Gia, that might in some ways mirror Rue's struggles. And we see that she is there bearing witness. Not only is she bearing witness to all of this stuff with her only sibling, whom she loves so much, but also when you have a child that is this sick, that child becomes such a main focus, because Rue has to be such a heavy focus for her mom, because her mom is trying to keep her alive. And she's doing this now as a single parent, as a widow. So, Gia is just so unfortunately caught in the crossfires of all this, like almost quite literally, when she's like always in the hall when Rue and Leslie are fighting. We find out that Jules will not allow drugs. I wrote uses pee got clean. What? I don't know if it's because of how the show jumps around from scene to scene. Um, but it is important to note that Jules says that, essentially she's not going to hang around Rue a whole bunch if she's going to have to worry that she's going to lose her to substances. So she decides to get clean, and she speaks. She speaks at the meeting about being clean. At this point, Jules is falling for Nate/Tyler. It says delusion. Is it possible that the romance that Rue is seeing is perhaps one-sided, unrequited, because Jules is absolutely like falling for Nate/Tyler. Then again, in this show, we see just about every character is in love with at least 2 people at once. So who knows? Jules does a photo shoot where she wants to take really, like kind of sexy photos for quote unquote Tyler. And then Jules kisses her on her face for being 2 weeks clean. And then she says, Rue says, I've never met anyone in my entire life like Jules. And then on her way out of Jules' house, she steals Jules' dad's pills. So we see that she's not really necessarily clean or intending to stay clean or How do I feel about HBO's depiction of the fanfic? To be quite honest with you, I don't think that I really had much of any sort of connection to that, because it was a little after my time. So I don't have the same, I've thought about it. Like, I'm like, I could understand if I were, because if we're talking about the Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, they there's like the narration of this like fan fiction like romance scene between them, and I could understand if like that would make real life people uncomfortable because it's talking mentioning real life people at the same time. That is something that people do online. So it's a very realistic thing that they talked about that's happening online. But at the same time, like I grew up at an age where like it was at before like fan fictions were a thing. Like I was often gone and grown up. I know that's annoying to hear, but it is an explanation for a lot of these things. Like before the Tumblr era, like I did MySpace and then I was off out of college and, like grown up and wearing skirt suits to work and stuff like that. So I don't know exactly how to feel about it because it's not something I've spent much time thinking about. Um, Janina says the Jules and Rue situation is so awful because even though it's great that Rue gets motivated to try to get clean, but the burden shouldn't be on the other person. Yeah, and that's definitely something that's going to come up. So let's see. So she speaks. Oh, I said, does she speak again or is this back at the original meeting? No, we're back at the meeting. So we actually find out that she actually hasn't been clean because we see like she's lying through her teeth because even though she's met Jules, she's still like I said, stealing pills and such. And this is where she meets Ollie outside. He makes her consider the effect on Gia. I guess because they get to chatting a little bit and he calls her out for lying about being clean. He can tell. And then he says, "Let me know when you stop trying to kill yourself and you want to get some pancakes." Um, and then Kat gets a quote unquote cash pig. Cassie leaves for the weekend to be with McKay. Maddie finds pics in Nate's phone. And I did put, while I don't like Cassie very much, and she becomes even more and more hateable. I do like her. I do put a heart Cassie as McKay's girlfriend. I do like her as McKay's girlfriend. We find that he's, stressed out about pledging for this fraternity, and she's just a really super supportive girlfriend, at least in this moment. I liked her as his girlfriend while they're like falling in love at these parties and stuff where, they have to take the shots with the fish, with the goldfish. And, he doesn't want to do it, but she does it with them, like stuff like that. It was very sweet and supportive of her. Rue takes a stolen pill after not getting in touch with Jules. So there you go to see, like, she's trying to get in touch with Jules. Jules is not available to her all the time, especially as she's like actively falling in love with some, shy guy 118, I think is his username. And so when Jules is not available, a pill is. And so there goes to show you, something that we start to see very clearly, especially as Ollie points it out, but it's like, Jules is just a replacement for substances for Rue. So then I put in all caps, cat transformation with hearts around it. She obviously it's a complicated thing because like I said, do we think it's healthy? I don't know, but probably not in some ways. She's a minor who's found videos of herself engaged in acts that are illegal to be recorded, much less online. But seeing these comments of these men and how much they want to objectify her and enjoy seeing her in this capacity really gives her a certain kind of confidence. So that newfound confidence combined with the money that she's getting, not from her cash pigs, but also for, I guess, I don't know if blackmailing is not the word, but like demanding it out of Roy and Troy, because those twins, McKay's brothers, who he calls Thing 1 and Thing 2, are the ones that are like, we're dispersing this video that's illegal. So she gets money out of them. She gets to go to Sephora and do this whole haul. So that was really fun to watch, and I really like her look when she came out of it. Rue tries to kiss Jules, and then runs out embarrassed. Dude, I had a thought about this the other day, and I don't know if I wrote it down. Yeah, I know what I thought about this. This is what irritates me, and I will say this. Second time around watching this, especially after watching the special, I have a lot more sympathy for Jules. I feel neutral about her, maybe a little bit neutral positive, where I felt a little bit neutral negative, to be quite honest. I didn't like Jules very much. But what I will say is, I don't really like how in this moment, Rue tries to kiss her, and then, it's an embarrassing situation for her, and then Rue runs away. And then later we hear Jules, like after she's already experimented with this new girl Anna and stuff like that, when she goes and visits her friends, and um, then and she comes back and tells Rue, "I want you to kiss me. I want you to kiss me without asking me first." And it's like, well, she's already done that and it didn't go well. Like, why do we not talk about that? Yeah, everything that you just mentioned, Janie, I have no you're speaking French to me because I don't know anything about that stuff. Let's see. Um, yeah, so she's embarrassed and then runs to Fez's house, and to try and get something because she can't handle this feeling that she's got of this like feeling of embarrassment and rejection from not having that kiss returned. Fez says, "I'm not going to help you kill yourself, Rue. You can come over. You can't come over here anymore." And she's verbally abusive and insults him, throws a fit, makes threats. And this kind of like hissy fit that she throws right outside his house. It's so heartbreaking, but it's a good depiction, I think, of kind of the lengths that addicts in active addiction will act, and they will be cruel, and we will see that show up again. But they'll be cruel, and they'll throw fits. They will be sneaky. They'll be conniving. They will say things that are really mean and cutting, if they're either intoxicated or especially when they're in withdrawals or jonesing in some way, in one capacity or another. Um, okay. Um, and then she ends up calling Ollie to get pancakes. And I think that's where the special picks up. So if you haven't watched that, then I would go back and watch that because that's where the special happened. No, I don't know. Because in the special, she does talk about Jules leaving her, but that hasn't happened yet. Curious. Oh, real people being used in that way. Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I'm saying I don't really have opinions on it, honestly. It's just not something that I've spent time thinking about. Um, but totally, like I've not I've dealt with possible with the prospect of somebody writing like like a fan fiction that involved me. It is uncomfortable. I didn't read it, and as far as I know, there was nothing like sexual about it. But it's still like the idea is just a little like. But then again, like I am far less. I am such a private figure compared to the One Direction guys. So I don't. I get. Well, you guys can guide me because I trust you. I don't really have much thought on that as of right now. Um, Let's see. Last episode that we have for this one, which it's okay if we go over 7 a little bit. Last episode in this installment, we get a cold open on Jules's backstory. And so this one too, it's like it's so important to watch that special. I don't know why they didn't put that in the regular episodes. Like it's Jules. Jules is like the second primary character, and like the things that we found out about Jules in her special were so necessary to all of her character development, and everything that like my opinion on her changed entirely based on that episode. So watch that if you have not. But yeah, we get Jules' backstory. We see where Jules's mom tricked her into being admitted into a psychiatric hospital by saying like, "Oh, we're gonna go to see this new therapist, and then they're gonna give you a tour around the facility," and then actually they ended up locking her in. Um, and then there's a quote: "The truth is, Jules hated herself. Um, Jules got better, Mom got worse, and she left." What is this? It looks like it says, oh, I was like 1-3, L3, B 13. At 13, she started transitioning and she got, quote unquote, got a little slutty. Rue is with Ali at the Pancake House. Um, Setting, oh, I said this is a setting for the special episode to discuss Friday for Patreon. So just so you know, toward as we get towards the end, if I forget, those who are interested in discussing the special episodes for Rue and Jules, join the Patreon. We will be just discussing those on Friday. So Rue rambles, and she skirts around the issue. So yeah, so here we are at the Pancake House with Ali, and um, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not referring to a different thing. I'm wondering if this is where she's talking about Jules and how she's, like, she's like, my focus now is to kind of, it's all about finding, I don't know if I didn't write it down or if it was in a different scene, but she's like, it's all about finding the right balance for my happiness. And he's like, which means getting sober. And she's like, yeah, but also it's like, finding what's good for me, what's bad for me, what's gonna make me happy and healthy. And he keeps homing in and just like cutting through the bullshit to say, it's about being sober. This is about being sober. And that was so gratifying for me to hear Ali cut through that and say, it's about your sobriety. I wish, honestly, that I could get more into it with you guys to tell you more of like who in my life I'm dealing with this more recently. But because it's still ongoing or is not necessarily fully resolved or whatever, I can't really get into it. But, I have loved ones, friends, family who struggle with addiction. And one of the things that is so annoying to me, and especially when I hear it from family members, when you're like, how's so and so? Are they sober? And then you hear a family member say things like, oh, they're doing great. They're working, saving money, they've got a new boyfriend, girlfriend, like, and I'm like, no, I want to know if that person is sober. Are they drinking? Are they using? That's what I want to know. Because at the end of the day, with the person who deals with full-blown addiction, how we're doing, quote unquote, how we're doing is really predicated first and foremost on whether or not we are sober. There is no, well, there's the concept of functioning versus not functioning. Some people can quote unquote function while they're using or kind of like go through dry spells. But there is no truly being well without being clean/sober and going through some sort of recovery program. So that's why I find it so gratifying for Ollie to like stop the conversation when Rue tries to be like talk about balance and happiness and no, it's about sobriety. So that's something I really love about the conversations that she has with Ali. Um, and as she's skirting around the issue, she starts to open up about Jules, and Ali compares Jules to the obsession of the obsession with drugs as well as the withdrawal when she is away from Jules, which I think was just really spot on. So then we get to the carnival, the chili cook-off. Looks like I didn't actually take that many notes about the carnival, mostly because it focused on other people's issues, not so much the addiction stuff. But yeah, we get to the carnival/chili cook-off. You see Kat and Ethan. I put a little heart next to Ethan. I think he looks like Drew Gooden. But then again, I thought he was another actor whose name is Andrew. I think he's an SNL featured cast member. Um, he does kind of look like Drew Gooden though. And then Gia and Lexi show up with Rue, and Gia says to Lexi, Rue's in love with Jules, I think. And then Lexi is like, oh, really? And then that was just kind of it. I wish that Gia and Lexi would connect more, and become better friends. And maybe that's a little difficult because that's like the best friend or the little sister of your best friend. But I really see a lot of parallels between Gia's experience and Lexi's experience. And with Lexi, they spell it out a little more later on, in season two, really pointing out that Lexi has spent her life being an observer, staying out of people's way, having to save people, and Gia has too. So I wish that they would kind of draw those parallels between the two girls and maybe have them bond over it. Um, and let's see, where were we? Maddie causes a scene at the little chili station. Nate finds her between some like trailers and then like strangles her. Let's see, I moved my notes around a little bit here. And then Rue loses Gia and she's worried, and kind of goes into mom mode. And you see Rue go into this space that her mom is usually occupying with her. So she's looking for Gia. She's worried out of her mind. She finally finds her. She's with Roy and Troy smoking weed, and she's just furious, goes off on them, and then takes Gia away. She's very sweet to her, ends up covering for her and stuff. But, she is worried to see her little sister getting involved, and especially with smoking weed. And we later hear her talk about how it's so not a big deal. Like weed is so not a big deal, as she later uses it as her quote unquote cover up drug. But watching Gia do it makes her feel some type of way. And it's just kind of like, the irony, it's just out the wazoo. Like though it's ironic, but it's very realistic. You do these things, but then you don't want to see your little siblings doing them or anything similar to it or anything in that realm. So oftentimes I think kind of the point of this is that we know as addicts, we know that this stuff is hurtful. We know that this stuff is bad for us. We don't want it for others. We don't want to go through the pain. And here Rue is getting just the tiniest dose of her own medicine. Let's see. Jules meets up with quote unquote Tyler, who happens to be Nate. He gives a very confusing speech. I'm very confused by the way that Nate interacts with Jules. And I get it. It's supposed to be confusing because he's attracted to her / in love with her, but also he's trying to suppress that. But and so it's supposed to be confusing, but also sometimes I can't get a grip on it. And it's not in this is supposed to be confusing kind of way, especially as we go into season 2. And thankfully, I've had this kind of confirmed. Well, of course, we're not in season 2 yet, but I've heard some people say that it was messily done. It was kind of messy, especially the finale. So it's difficult to get a handle on exactly what's going on with Nate when he's around Jules. You can guess just based on some context clues we've picked up. But what is motivating him to say the thing he's saying in this very moment? I don't know. So he gives her a whole speech, and then he kind of comes on to her, and then he threatens to out her for producing CP and ruin her life. And that is something that happens a few times throughout, and I just don't know if I buy it. Like, maybe somebody else can tell me themselves. Like, teenagers sending photos of themselves to other teenagers, like minors sending photos to other minors. I don't understand how they themselves can get in that much trouble for it. But apparently, as they've spoken, like I said, they even did the kind of racy boudoir type of selfies, though Rue took them, and she sent these to Nate. Nate print I guess this I don't know if this is a part where he printed them and gave them to her and was just like, I can basically take these to the police and you can get in a lot of trouble. You won't get into any schools of your choice, blah blah blah. If I could ruin your life. So basically like leave my family alone, kind of, I think was the message. And so I put, is he in love with her? He is threatened by her. And I think it's both. I think he's in love with her and he's threatened by her. I think she causes so much turmoil within him. I wrote dangerous. Earlier, she told Rue that she doesn't have the privilege of meeting in public, which we can have empathy for as the viewer, especially if we are not trans ourselves or closeted in other ways, or not closeted, but just marginalized in ways that sometimes you have to closet your behavior. But still, it is this issue is uh, kind of, we talked about how each character kind of, they manifest their traumas in different ways, and Jules' issues is she puts herself in a lot of dangerous situations. And then after this, she runs to Rue's. Rue is Rue is the hero in this case. And then they show B-roll. This is where they start to show the romantic scenes between Jules and Jews and rules, Rue and Jules. And it's like the scene by scene, or it's like the it looks like a merry-go-round of like the bed and then them at the carnival, and it's like them in these very like romantic scenes or images. And again, it makes me wonder, like, are they truly being romantic in these moments, or is this Rue as the unreliable narrator? We later hear Jules more explicitly say that she is interested in Rue in that way. But it takes a while. And like we said, she's been focused on Nate/Tyler for this time. So I don't know. I'm confused by a good bit of it. So I am surprised I was able to cover most of that by almost all of that by 7. Let's see. I loved when Rue said to Nate, "You think you can F up my life? Well, I can guarantee you I can F up my life on my own more than you can." Yeah, I kind of liked a lot of, she didn't, again, like, I wonder if it's because they dated and it didn't go well, but some of the scenes with Rue and Nate, some of the things that, the way that they handle Nate, I love it. It's just more powerful than, it's because of the things that they're willing to do themselves. It's very true, but it's like it really kind of like knocks them off course. Um, let's see. Yeah, so that's where we are halfway through season 1. Did questions, class? Do we have any questions about, how addiction is depicted in here? Where do we think that it's going to go? We already know where it's gone because most of us have watched both seasons. But, if you, I think a lot of people probably who don't have a strong grasp on addiction recovery probably have gotten to this point and really, really hope that Jules is going to save Rue. And that is, I'm so glad that the show does not cave to that. I don't think I really liked the show very much if it did. Of course, it never was going to, because, like I said, it's a reflection of Sam Levinson's experience, and he, as an actual addict, is going to be able to say, like, know not to allow the story to go that way. Um, I'm really glad. I'm really glad that that's not how it turns out. What I didn't see the first time around, and I see it now the second time around, is um, how suffocated Jules seems by Rue. So, Stephanie, you love that I'm covering this. Thank you. I love that you love it. Thank you. Oh, and I see that some people, you guys liked the video. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, wow, Stephanie, you were intoxicated when you watched the first season, but then you've been sober for 8 months. Congratulations. Oh man, like I'm jealous because it's such a like I imagine like it's different for everyone, but I imagine it's such a fun time. I I'm curious while I'm here for a little bit longer, anybody else's experience with getting clean or sober if you've done that. But for me, really putting down the drink for a few days after you go through those first few days, the few days of withdrawal, I remember the feeling of like it felt like I was breathing air for the first time. You did, like, and I mean that literally. I'm not like trying to be like, oh, it was like I was drowning and then I could breathe. It was like, no, quite literally, you don't realize that you're walking around all day in your own like, alcohol stench. Um, but also like but also the anxiety that comes along with withdrawal, that you're just kind of like as a drunk that's like not currently with a drink. There's a lot of anxiety that's involved. So I remember when I would quit drinking, then I would go outside and like breathe air, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like the air just feels so clean and cool and refreshing. H. Woods is a year and 65 days sober. Congrats. Hell yeah, you guys. Oh, this makes me so excited for you guys. Um, Janina, I've seen some people complain how stupid and repetitive that Rue keeps relapsing, but they don't understand that that's the reality. Yes, that's the point. And I think that's what I wanted to say to Kat Black's point, is that no, we have to see continual relapsing. And what we're going to see, and I'm going to point it out a few times, is, and I'll kind of leave it on this note more or less. But here's the takeaway that I want for this stream. Jules is not going to get Rue clean and sober. A person cannot achieve recovery unless they become a whole person, whole enough to do it on their own. And so, that leaning on Jules to stay clean for bouts of time is really just kind of, a term that we've used a lot in our society is codependency, though I think my own therapist say that it's actually dependency. These people are dependent on each other. It's not actual recovery from addiction. The person has to love themselves, be whole enough and love themselves enough to want to do it for their own reasons. Even if their own reasons are, I love Jules and my family and myself enough to stay around for them, and whatever your reasons are, but they have to be your reasons. It can't just be like, well, she won't let me, because then you'll find ways around that. Or if it goes wrong, if that person leaves your life or you have a fight, then it makes it a lot easier to get back into that stuff. You have to become your own whole person. And that wasn't going to happen over the course of a season, because they knew they were going to get the red flag for future seasons of this show. That wasn't going to happen in one season. It's not realistic to think that somebody can get out of rehab in summer and then by winter, like, I don't even think I think that's when season 1 ended, right? We're probably like midway to that point now. But to expect that a person's going to go through the whole journey and get clean and sober for good, no. But what we will see throughout the show, and I'll point out where I've noticed it, and if you notice parts that I don't, please point it out. But we will see points here and there where Rue shows a bit of growth. And I think those it's almost like putting together a puzzle, even of a broken person. But that broken person is still in puzzle pieces, and you need to find, or just let's not make too many analogies. Just take a broken person. That's fine that you're broken, but we need to find enough of your pieces and put them together before you can actually heal. You know, you can't. How can you heal if your pieces are missing? So I think we start to see Rue grow, and then she will relapse, and then you grow, and then you relapse. You can have moments of growth while you're relapsing. You can't fully heal, you can't fully grow, but you have moments that push you towards that long lasting recovery that we hope we will one day attain. And so that's what I want to keep an eye out for. And when we talk about that balance of empathy and accountability, spotting those moments is really gratifying, because then you can kind of marry the empathy and the accountability into these moments where you're proud of this character. And we also have to understand, and then the show will also challenge those moments of being proud of her with being disappointed by her and then having to forgive her. And we have to be prepared for that, that we are going to be let down by this character, and we are going to have to be faced with the decision of whether or not to forgive her. You don't have to. You never have to. But if you love this character and you want to continue a journey and relationship with the character, just like you would with the person, then forgiveness is something you're going to have to learn. Do you have to forgive them while they're actively killing themselves? No. That's for you to decide how much you do. And it's such a delicate balance that like nobody knows how to strike that perfect balance, and it's different from each addict to addict, and it's different from each person in their lives. And then we fight with each other about, you see it between Leslie and Gia. You know, that one moment Gia is like telling Leslie, stop it, she has a problem, go easier on her. Then Leslie's like, you want to see her, you know, you're going to become just like her if you and then Gia's like, well, I don't want to be like you. And it causes fights between people, because anytime that we are called upon to strike a balance between two seemingly opposing concepts, empathy and empathy and accountability, you know, disappointment, forgiveness, you know, things like this. Any time that you're called to find a balance, there's never any one right answer, and that is a commentary on, I think, just society as a whole, or at the very least, the internet. So, if nothing else, walk away from this conversation with that, bearing in mind that in most situations, I'm kind of broadening this because I did see the comparison, because I have wanted to have this conversation a lot, talking about the balance between empathy and accountability, is that we as the internet are often polarized and divisive on so many issues. So many people all have their various things that they're dealing with, various mental illnesses, or various traumas, various statuses, minority statuses, various privileges. Just we all come with our array of things, right? And so anytime that somebody does something that makes us feel some type of way, we're all called upon to be like, okay, I'm going to bring this X amount of compassion and X amount of accountability to this conversation. And how much each situation requires, with, you know, how much of each is never, there's never a right answer. And I think that is the reason we fight. Yeah, that's the point that I was getting to, is I think that's the reason we as the internet fight. And also, on that note, keep in mind that if you get to the point where you're all compatibility, when you're all accountability and no compassion, when you're all chastising and no empathy, then you're either just stuck in a cycle of wanting to hate and fight, or that person has already let you down to the point of no repair. You've got to let it go. We can't live there. that's not conducive to growth for anyone, not for the self and not for the other person. Let that go. But if you can come to a situation balancing compatibility, I keep saying it, accountability and compassion, then that creates a space where people can grow, in my opinion. All right. All right. I'm gonna look at your chats real quick. Mindy, are you just joining us? Thank you. Thank you for, I think, commenting on my look. Um, Janie says, I think that broken person analogy is true for life as a whole, not just addiction. Oh, for sure. And that just, it goes to show, or it goes without saying that a lot, like I said, all of these characters are dealing with their own traumas. A lot, if you've watched my channel for a while, you've heard me compare a lot of different scenarios to the model of addiction and recovery. And so, a lot of what I'm saying about Rue and her addictions, although some of the stuff is specific to exactly how addiction works, it is also relevant to other situations, other traumas and illnesses that other people are dealing with. Stephanie says, I feel like the show is all about empathy. Like it will let you make a surface level judgments, but then it will give you more information or background to make you feel for a disliked character. Yeah, and I think that's Janina says a wise leash. Thank you. But I think that's the great thing about media. I think that's what I love about stories is that whether they're true or fiction, they giving seeing a window into somebody's life, somebody especially that it would be so easy to judge at face value, you really start to understand the person, and that is where empathy and compassion grow. Is understanding why people do what they do. Some people are able to just kind of naturally flex that. They don't know why people do what they do, but have a natural like loving and forgiving nature to them. And some of us, we kind of want to understand like why do they do the things they do, and that the knowledge helps us to breed compassion. So I think media and stories are very good for that. I mean, when I say media, I mean entertainment, movies and TV that tell stories about people and how people work. And this is why I love doing this. This is why I started my channel, because I like talking about why people do the things that they do. Janie says, oh wait, Rosie says, yeah, the characters that I thought I would hate, I don't mind. See? Janie says, I think accountability is sometimes as big a crutch as substances. So we need to have compassion for those who appear to lack it. Yes, it's all about finding the correct balance. And there are times where you have to flex a little bit more than the other. It all depends on the situation. But it's important for us all to keep in mind how much of each we're bringing to each situation. And if something's not working, what can we change that balance a little bit? But at the same time, bear in mind that other people's problems are not for you to fix. That's what Jules is the cautionary tale for that. Mindy says, I love when a show makes characters two-dimensional and we can watch them rise and fall and rise. It's relatable and shows that people can let you down, but they are able to grow. Yeah, for sure. And I think the show makes people multi-dimensional, except for Nate. And I'm one of the few people that's hoping for some sort of redemption for Nate, because I don't, unless he is just a psychopath/sociopath, which did anybody notice the similarity between him bloody and like laughing in the hospital bed to the image of Christian Bale as American Psycho with blood all over his face? Unless he is just simply like, I'm so bored by the idea of just somebody who's just an evil character, because I don't see people as being that way. So I would love to see some sort of redemption for him. I would love to see some softness come out of him. And I think that is going to happen as they explore the relationship between him and Jules. Is he going to be fully redeemed? Probably not, maybe not. But I would love to see more dimension to him, because right now it's really hard to have much empathy for him. or compassion. Um, but yes, like we need to watch people rise and fall, and especially at the end of the day, when it comes to addiction, um, it's nothing but rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And even, even if you spend 9.5 years rising, there's there's always a ooh, what a weird like analogy with the wings, but like there's always a chance that I could fall from grace or whatever you want to call it. And that's just the reality of this disease. So that is why healthy, true, actual recovery is really important. And on that note, I had a dream, totally mostly unrelated to this, but I had a dream the other night that I was back in college and I was trying to figure out which dorm I was going to live in. There was like a really swanky, cool dorm where I could like live it up, or there was like a cheap one where I had a roommate, and I was trying to decide which one I was going to live in. And I mentioned earlier on in this stream, I am currently in the house buying process. So that's probably why. And at one point, I'm like walking around on campus, and then the pancake house was right off to the right, and I saw Miss Marsha going in. Miss Marsha, I think that's her name. There are two Marshas in the show. Miss Marsha is going in, and and I was like, Miss Marsha, hey. And she was like, hey. And she waved back. So if you don't remember, Miss Marsha is, she's the waitress in the pancake house. And Ali in the special asks her how long she's been sober. And she was like, let me get back to just counting my tips, which I think I'm going to talk about this on Friday with Patreon. But I think it's a really important note about, once you reach recovery, like when you're in addiction, especially with narcotics versus just alcohol, like it's like a constant chase for money for drugs, and like you can't hold on to money for the most part because you're constantly in debt to somebody, you're constantly stealing. Not, again, sweeping generalizations, but then I think that's a really nice symbol that like Miss Marsha is now sober for however many years and like living this simple life where she's counting her tips, and I like that. But also she was in the AA meeting. So, we'd seen her before, and she sounds, when she talks, she doesn't sound like an actress. And so I looked her up, and her only credit is Euphoria. So I think she's just a real sober person, I think. So I want pancakes too. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat dinner. I'm gonna pass out. All right, guys. I hope you can join me tomorrow. Same time, same place. Let's see who else. None of my other costumes are quite this elaborate. This was a Jules Halloween costume, but still going to continue having fun with the outfits, and hope you'll join me for more discussion every day this week, or between now and Thursday, Friday as well, if you are a patron. There's still time to join Patreon, of course. Obviously, it's not Friday, and you can always join, but patreon.com/helloleesh. It's $2 for the podcast tier. So you don't even need to join the Discord access level in order to watch those. Thank you, Elise, saying wonderful insight, and to Stephanie for saying great stream. Thank you. Yay, Rosie. We'll be excited to see you tomorrow. Thank you guys for being here. I'm excited to talk tomorrow. Okay. I love you. Bye.